What is up, everybody? Welcome to You Guys Made Me Inc., the #1 Finding Nemo podcast on the internet. Today, as always, I'm with Vaughn, and my name is Chase, if you didn't know.
Just in case you missed the 7 episodes before, yeah, your name is Chase.
Yeah, that's it.
If you didn't know, not only is this the greatest Finding Nemo podcast of all time, it's also not at all about Finding Nemo and about basically nothing. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we roll, though, so...
Yeah, why not? Now you can actually not only catch this on Mondays on our YouTube channel, Fanboy Talks, but also on SoundCloud. All 7 episodes are already uploaded, and all the rest will be too. So I'm pretty excited about that. Now people can actually listen to it as a podcast.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, man. Now, I wonder, is there any way we can look at the views, if there's even a view on any of them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's analytics on it, because
Cool.
I essentially subscribed for the higher form of SoundCloud, so now I can upload unlimited. I have to pay like $15 a month, but it's not too bad. And I get to see all the analytics. Yeah, it's pretty
Compared
cool.
to how I played World of Warcraft for about 35 seconds and paid for like a year.
Yeah, that's kind of your MO. You also did the same thing for Final Fantasy, but A Realm Reborn, but you actually played that a little bit longer than World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft was literally like 30 minutes. You played it. You bought all the expansions, purchased the like month-to-month fee, and then played it for 30 minutes.
Hell yeah, dude. And it was I don't know, I just didn't get it, you know.
Yeah, it's got a pretty high bar of entry. You got to get really into it to actually get into it at all. I don't like the way that they've revamped the combat and everything in Legion. I mean, they've really just dumbed down a lot of the classes, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. I got back into it like a month or two ago, played a little bit, and I was like, nah, they changed everything way too much. They eliminated a lot of skills I really liked, and they kept a lot that are just kind of dumb. Plus, like, rogues still can go invisible far before they can actually use any sort of like a backstab and everything. So you basically just go invisible for no reason. And then you get a stun. It's like, oh, that's cool. Whatever. I'll just go fuck myself. Yeah.
Seems like interesting to have a rogue have a little bit of CC. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't really understand. I mean, there's whatever. I don't want to talk about World of Warcraft. It annoys me too much that they've changed it so much. I mean, this is once again huge fucking topic of this podcast, I guess. Alienating your original audience by making it more accessible. That's what they did with this, and I'm just like, come on, dude. Everyone's like, oh, they brought it back to a lot of the originals, and I'm like, original WoW, from what I understand, had like a ridiculous amount of skills. Like, it was just obnoxious, and I would rather have it that than this like super simplified version, because it's not what I want to play. Hashtag not my World of Warcraft. Yep, that just happened.
You're boycotting?
Nope, I'm definitely not boycotting it. I don't give a fuck about it at the moment. It's just not my World of Warcraft.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, did you have any topics you wanted to talk about today?
I did, but I totally forgot. So if you give me like 1 second.
All right, well, I will get into my first topic then while you think of your first. I love how this is the second time. Last week, I think you had something to say too, and you forgot about it.
I feel like I sent you my question though, so.
Oh yeah, you did.
Okay.
You did.
So essentially, if you like won the lottery or you just became really rich, what would be the first thing you purchased?
The first thing I purchased?
Yeah. Would it be something crazy big or just like something smaller or what?
I've actually thought about this a lot, like even beforehand, what I would buy if I like won the lottery and everything. And I'm not like, I enjoy like random shit. Like, I love video games. I'm a collector of all sorts of things, but I have the means to purchase what I want now, so I'm not gonna like go out and buy a DeLorean or anything. The one thing that I would purchase first and foremost is, I've actually thought about this a lot. I would buy my parents' house and just gift it to them so they didn't have to pay for it. That's like the one thing I thought about. I was like, man, I just help out my parents, I guess. Just buy their house and give it to them and be like, yeah, there you go. It's all paid off. Whatever.
That's pretty noble. I'd probably do the same for my mom.
I don't know. That's like not a fun purchase. That's like the first purchase I would do. And then with the rest of the money, I would like, one, save it, but also two, I don't know, buy a DeLorean.
So that's your second purchase.
Yeah, it's not my first purchase. It's my second purchase.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of DeLoreans, you and I, we went and saw Ready Player One, and Ernest Cline actually owns a DeLorean. The author of the book, he owns a DeLorean. I thought that was cool. I was like, man, you really must like Back to the Future.
Speaking of Ready Player One, man, that movie was awesome.
I really enjoyed the movie. I mean, you and I had like a conversation, a little back and forth on Twitter about like feelings on the movie. I really enjoyed it as like it being a separate like standalone thing. I enjoyed it and I enjoy the book, but I do enjoy the book more. But I don't know. I don't think the two need to be necessarily like together. You don't have to have like read the book to enjoy the movie. I would recommend if you did watch the movie though, read the book. It's good shit.
Yeah, and I planned on reading the book, but then I decided I usually like books more, so I'm gonna read it after I see the movie.
That's the thing. Like, I've always hated that people are like, oh, the book's better, like every time they see a movie, and I'm like, dude, fuck you. It's a fucking movie. Leave it alone. And then I was finally that person. I was like a huge hypocrite. I was like, man, the book's better.
Well, it usually is. There's just more time in the book.
Yeah, you brought that up. It's there's more time altogether, like to be subtle in a book to really tell the story you want to, than in a movie that takes like it's
2
like
hours,
oh
man.
Cram this whole thing into 2.5 hours, which they definitely, I think they did a good job. Had a lot of like great stuff in it. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's like an amazing movie, but it was really fun.
I thought it was awesome. That's all I thought about it. And you know, I'm really weird about stuff like this. I think I've said it on the podcast maybe before when we were talking about Pacific Rim Uprising. When I get done with movies like that, or when the very first time when I went and saw Iron Man in theaters, I always like in my brain like make something, you know, like for Pacific Rim, I like constructed a fake Jaeger in my brain, like, oh, this is what he would do. He'd be super cool, you know.
Yeah, we talked about that on podcast number 7. Check that out.
Yeah, and Iron Man, I did the same thing. Like, oh man, my Iron Man would be like this, and it'd be named this, and it'd do this differently, you know, stuff like that. I've always done that. And after Ready Player One, I was driving home, and I was thinking, this makes me want to play a game, but I do not know what game it makes me want to play.
Yeah, at the moment, like the Oasis is such an interesting like view on video games. The both of us being gamers, it's basically a universe entirely created by fanboys and fangirls. So like everything you could hope for is in this universe, and it's so awesome and interesting. But that sadly, that I don't think the game's ever gonna exist. Like there's just way too much money to be made as them being separate things.
Yeah, and the thought process for me was, it made me want to play an MMO. Yeah. It made me want to play something that, like, at the end, one of the guys is like, oh man, I have 10 years of stuff on this character, you know? And that made me think, like, man, I want to play an MMO, but I want to play, like, a different MMO than there is right now, you know? Because I was going through my head thinking about... Yeah, I was going through my head thinking of the MMOs, like, oh, World of Warcraft, no, I mean, that has some elements that are cool. I was like, DCUO, no, that has some elements that are cool. And I just thought of, like, a whole bunch of different ones. I was like, man, just throw all of them together, and that's what you get.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's obviously never going to happen. It's the equivalent of, like, your eyes being too big for your stomach. Like, you want all of these amazing things to be put in one game, but just one, the amount of time it would take to develop such a game would be crazy. Like, it would definitely happen in our lifetime, but we'd be old as fuck. And two, like, it's just, sadly, it would never happen just because of like human greed altogether. Like,
yeah, like you were saying, too much money. In
it, there's so many
properties.
references. Fucking Tracers in it, the Iron Giant, Serenity from Firefly. There's like all sorts of shit, and I actually thought about it after the movie. After we had our little discussion about the movie and how I enjoyed the book a little bit more, because it like had a lot more detail and there was a lot of plot points that the movie missed. And I thought about it and I was like, wouldn't that be so weird if the reason that a lot of this wasn't told, the reason they didn't adapt essentially the screenplay like just entirely based on the novel was because they couldn't pay for certain things. Yeah, like there's a lot of references in fucking Ready Player One, and like there's several things that happen, like the coin he gets. I'm not gonna really get into that, but the coin he gets is actually from getting the highest score possible in Pac-Man in the book, I believe. It's either in Pac-Man or... No, it's in Pac-Man. I'm almost 100% sure it's in Pac-Man. But there's just so many things that I feel like they possibly left out of this movie because, like, they just couldn't pay for it. Similar to how Deadpool makes the joke about why there's only 2 X-Men is because they couldn't afford more.
And I assumed before we saw it that it would be something like that. Like, I haven't read the book yet, and I plan to, but you were telling me, like, just that there's just so much stuff in this book that I was just thinking, like, there's no way they're going to be able to afford all of them.
They got a lot of cool cameos, though.
No,
like, if you look in the background, there's so much shit in there. They had fucking Spartans from Halo. I was honestly surprised about that. I was like, wow, that is interesting.
And I'm wondering if maybe some companies may be big fans of the book, or, like, you know, heads of the companies may be big fans, so they gave them, like, a lower rate, you know, or, you know, something like that. So I was thinking maybe that could have been happening, too. Because they did get a lot. They got the DeLorean. They had a lot of stuff in there, and it was like, huh.
I mean, including a DeLorean in something I don't think is necessarily going to cost you much money, because you just... you just had to buy a DeLorean, but also the way that the special effects are, I don't really think that it was like they actually owned one.
Well, I'm just thinking about licensing.
Yeah, it's the only thing I would say about the licensing and everything is the DeLorean's an actual car. It wasn't just from Back to the Future.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's some sort of licensing on, you know, the specifics of the DeLorean.
Oh, yeah, because it's like a pop culture icon now.
Yeah.
It exists in pop culture forever because of Back to the Future. Like that's the only reason people bought them.
If you want to put Mario in something, you're going to have to lease that from Nintendo. If you want to put, you know, all these other things in, you're going to have to lease it from those companies. So, I don't know. It was really cool, though. I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it.
The one thing I didn't like the most is that there were a lot of quiet moments.
Yeah, there's quite a few quiet moments. The thing that I didn't enjoy the most, and this is something that I really, really hate in just storytelling altogether, is like implied character development. Like the relationship between Parzival and Artemis, I feel like was a little bit too implied in the movie than it was in the book, because in the book they like actually do stuff together. They like go to movies, they essentially date, they do all that, and they build a relationship off of it, and they really get to know each other. And I feel like it was kind of rushed in the movie, but that kind of makes sense because, as we said before, you've got 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like,
you had to get it all out there. Them dating.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about the romance. This is about the Gunters. It's about the egg hunt and Halliday and all those people. So I feel like us talking about Ready Player One is a pretty good segue into something that I wanted to talk about. And that is, so earlier I watched The Girl with All the Gifts, I believe it's called. And it's essentially people take it as like a movie version of The Last of Us. It's like the only good video game movie that exists, because it's about a little girl, and the cordyceps fungus exists in it as well. They actually call it the cordyceps fungus, which I thought was interesting. It's essentially the plot of The Last of Us, but put in a movie with a small, like a little bit of tweaks.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What is it called?
It's called The Girl with All the Gifts.
Okay, I'm just gonna look it up.
Yeah, it's weird. It's an odd movie, and they tweak just enough of it to make it super interesting. I don't want to like spoil it or anything, but it's a lot like The Last of Us. And I wanted to talk to you about like one, why video game movies never like do well, and I actually have a theory on why they never do well. And two, like, do you think that video game movies would do a lot better if they were loosely based off the source material than strictly? So like Tomb Raider, the new Tomb Raider movie, from what I understand, is essentially the Tomb Raider games, like the remakes that happened recently. The new Tomb Raider is basically just that.
And what I have to say about that is also, again, the time constraint. Video game stories can be up to 60 hours long.
Yeah, and you
Movies
have to fit
are
that
not.
into 2 hours.
Yeah, movies are not. And I think that's a big problem. Like you said, a lot of stuff is implied. So when a movie like Tomb Raider or the Assassin's Creed movie comes out, a lot of it is probably just hoping off the fact that you've played the games. Or you have a mild understanding of what the games are. So they can go straight into it.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. That's why I wanted to, that's why I brought up the Girl with All the Gifts, is because it's loosely based on that, but they tell their own story in a different way. And I feel like this is my theory on how video games can be done well, is not trying to tell the story essentially verbatim from the video games, but adapting it in the way that you want and making it your own and telling your own story. I feel like that's a way that you could get away with making a good video game movie versus like strictly trying to adapt it. Like,
and let's
there
say
are good game movies.
Theoretically, you played all 120 hours or whatever of The Witcher series. There's probably way more hours, but like 300 hours of The Witcher series, and you see a movie called The Witcher, your expectations are going to be really high because the games are so good.
I mean, they're making the Netflix series, the live-action Netflix series,
and that's
which
what
I think
saying.
TV does it a lot better because they don't have that ridiculous time constraint.
TV does do it a lot better because it you have episodes, you have hours on hours on hours of content, rather than 2 hours, 2.5 hours that you have to get everything done.
Yeah, the difference is between like 2.5 hours versus like 10 to 12 hours. You can do a lot more with that time than you could with your 2 hours. So you can actually like go down and really get to the nitty-gritty details. You don't have to leave so much out.
Yeah, and I think that them doing it in the TV style, episodic style, is much smarter because the world of The Witcher is so vast. There's so much going on. And I just think that if you make a movie and call it Assassin's Creed, you're doing yourself a disservice. A disservice by doing that. Now, if you named it something not totally different, something different, and said, like, loosely, like you were saying, loosely based off of Assassin's Creed, then I think you have more leeway with the people watching.
Yeah. With The Girl with All the Gifts, they never reference The Last of Us or anything like that. They never reference Naughty Dog or any of those guys. So I definitely think you could get away with it. Just tell your fucking story, like, essentially in that universe, but give it a completely different name and be like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a good movie because I didn't try to make fucking Assassin's Creed verbatim, which the movie is not.
And I think you're onto something right there by saying you can use the same universe as The Witcher, but don't tell the main character of the Witcher series, don't tell his story. Tell someone else's story.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be really excited about that. If they didn't tell Geralt's story, they taught somebody else's. I mean, they don't... I don't know if fans of this series would say it strictly has to be a Witcher, because you could just use the name The Witcher and not necessarily tell a Witcher's story. It's just the name is just there for notoriety, like people who played the game.
And it's saying that this is part of the same universe, but not the stories you know.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that that's definitely how they could do like video game movies better, is telling their own stories and not worrying about replicating these existing stories on a bigger screen, on a bigger scale.
Yeah, and I think that's we say it's a simple solution, but it's really not, because
It's definitely not. That's a tough order because
But I think it'd be better. I truly do. I think it'd be better to call something The Witcher and have it do maybe a character you only saw once in the entire series. Just have that character's story.
yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's just like side stories in anime and all sorts of stuff, or like how Frasier was such a big deal and it was a branch from Cheers. Like
Yeah,
it was just a side story.
And
like things can do really
good
well.
Idea. It's a good idea.
I think a lot of it would go better. So you've been, speaking of video games, you've been playing Far Cry 5. How's that going for you? How do you like it? This isn't a review, just overall thoughts on Far Cry 5 right now.
It's a lot of fun. I would prefer it to be, and this is going to sound crazy because it's a Far Cry, and you know, that's, you know, it's got just staples in the game, but I would prefer it to be third person, because in my opinion, I think third person story driven games are better.
Why is that?
I don't know. It just feels more natural when I'm playing offline. It's not competitive. If it's a competitive shooter or something like that, I want it to be first person, because that takes a lot of just like chance away.
Mm-hmm.
Because in third person, you can like look around buildings without being around the building. But in stories where there is no multiplayer killing other people, I would prefer to be able to look around this building and see someone around the corner.
Yeah, you're looking at it from a gameplay aspect?
Yeah, and that's kind of how I always look at stuff. The story itself is really interesting. I'm still not 100% sure what's going on.
Yeah, it's based off like Joseph Seed and his cult like taking over the town in Montana. Hope, Montana, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, it's a county in it's called Hope, Montana. Hope County or whatever. And essentially what it is there's a map. There's 3 sections, and each of the sections is, you know, one of the like higher ups in the cult. They like
his generals essentially.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of fun. One thing I've noticed is I saw people like talking about, oh, what's your favorite gun and stuff, and you know, this isn't really a competitive game, so I'm not sure why it's like a thing, but I find myself using the pistol or one of the pistols the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just threw a silencer on it and threw a red dot, and I've just been using the pistol a lot. And a lot of people are like, oh man, this gun's so good, and this gun's... And it's like, are you having that much trouble with this single-player game that you need a good gun? Because I've just been playing with the pistol.
What difficulty you're playing on? Because I've heard from different outlets that difficulty could definitely affect your playthrough.
I haven't touched difficulty. I'm just on the normal one.
Oh, gotcha. I gotcha. I also, have you, like... You are a self-proclaimed whale for microtransactions.
Yeah.
Have you purchased any of the microtransactions? Basically,
Nope.
just the stuff to purchase guns.
No.
No.
The only time I'm a whale is when it pays to be a whale.
So in this, you'd say that the microtransactions are they're just unnecessary.
Totally useless.
Yeah, it's just for people who don't want to put the time into the game, so it's completely optional.
It's not even. I'll tell you what it is. So when you start off with, I think, like an AR and a pistol. And so that unlocks those, quote, it unlocks those for you. And then if you run around and you kill someone that has a shotgun and you pick up their shotgun, it unlocks it for you. Mm-hmm. What you can do is you can skip all this and just buy the guns with the gold bars or whatever, or you can buy it with the money that you get. And kind of same with the cars. You can buy cars or whatever. I only bought one car because it was like, you don't need all these other cars. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, this isn't like fucking GTA. You're not getting your car collection and checking them out in your fucking garage.
Yeah, it's just, you have a list of cars that you can buy. I just bought one that had guns on it because it comes in handy when you're just driving down the road and there's some people in front of you and you shoot them. It's a lot of fun. But no, overall the game is a blast, man. I've been using the pistol and the bow. I have a sniper too. I use that a little bit less, but I pretty much just use the pistol.
Yeah, how you and I, big proponents of the Far Cry series. We both really enjoyed them, and both of us, I think, agree that Voss is one of the greatest video game villains of all time. How do you feel that like Joseph Seed plays up to Voss? Like, have you gotten far enough to really like give a definitive statement?
And that's the thing, is I don't know when you are far enough, because I've killed one of his higher ups. Her name is Faith. I went after her first.
Yeah, the drug girl, I've heard.
Oh yeah, it's
I've heard
obnoxious.
she gets fucking psychedelic.
Yeah, on Twitter I posted a few days ago, or like the day it came out, I was playing, and when you are next to the drugs too long, because they're like, it's essentially like weed, but like crazy, you know?
Yeah, it's called Bliss, right?
Yeah, it's called, the drug's called Bliss, and if you're near it too long, or whatever, like it's everywhere. It's in the water, it's everywhere. So if you're near it too long, yeah, you go into the Bliss. And she like does this rant and talks to you and like, oh, join us and all this other stuff, you know. And in my opinion, it's a little much. I don't care for it. You can't skip it, so I just get on my phone. But I posted on Twitter, I was like, when you accidentally go into the Bliss, and it was just like, God damn it.
Have you not been like a big fan of the psychedelic moments? Because that's pretty much a staple in the Far Cry series. Like
it is a staple.
In Far Cry 3, it happened and you like burned down an entire weed field.
Yeah, and it does happen in the games, but it happens more from what I played, because I killed her. Oh man, felt so good. Because she's just like in my dreams and stuff. And the most annoying part is when you do go into the Bliss, when you wake up, you're not where you were.
Oh, yeah? So you like fucking sleepwalk and shit?
No, you're back at like the main camp or whatever. So it's like, well, I was trying to get somewhere. And I like running on foot a lot because, you know, you can kill deer and you know, just cougars and stuff.
Yeah, it's what I do in all the Elder Scrolls games. I always go on foot instead of fast travel because you never know what you're going to run into.
Yeah, so I like doing that, you know, killing people, taking their ammo, stuff like that. And if I accidentally am in the water too long or whatever, I go into this Bliss. And it's only happened like 2 or 3 times, but it's still annoying.
Something that I will say I've always enjoyed about the Far Cry games is because they're so weird and so wonky that the way that they take to drugs is so interesting. Because in, the original Far Cry and Far Cry 2, not so much, but Far Cry 3, 4, Primal, and now 5, it seems, really take, when it talks about drugs and everything, it's like a spiritual experience. It's not like, drugs are bad, fucking you kill people on drugs and shit like that. It's like a big spiritual experience. Like, this is a thing. It's not just like villainous.
Now, have you played it at all yet?
I haven't. Honestly, like all of the knowledge that I have is just listening to other people talk about this game. So that's why I wanted to get your opinions on it. Because I really, really love the Far Cry series, but I was cautiously optimistic for this one. I'm going to pick it up, but I did just pick up Ni no Kuni 2, and to be fair, I'm not even playing it right now. For some reason, I'm playing fucking Portal Knights, so I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. It's going down a rabbit hole pretty damn quick.
I would say I've killed one of the 4, I'm assuming. So I'm a quarter of the way through, and you have not seen Joseph very much. Like, very little.
I've heard that it's like from what I've listened to, like Colin Moriarty, Greg Miller, basically all the guys we've talked about before. I've listened to them talk about their experiences with Far Cry Primal, and they've basically said like...
With Primal or with 5?
Or, sorry, not Far Cry Primal. Far Cry 5. Okay. And they've said that like he's very mysterious. Like you not only don't know like his plans for you, but he like goes out of his way to not kill you. Like, you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, there's
like,
multiple times where he could just kill you, but he doesn't.
Yeah, that's kind of weird to me. Like, I don't know. This seems like a different take on a villain because, like, villains in like Far Cry 4, they were just like bad guys. It was like Pagan Min was a good villain, and then in the end you have to choose between the lesser of like three evils essentially. And in Far Cry 3, they had Voss, who was such a great villain, but then it turns out like in the end he was actually just like a pawn. Like he wasn't even actually, he was just a goon. And his fucking, you see his boss like 3 times and you're just like, wow, you are not memorable at all, but Voss is.
Oh yeah, I have no idea what the other guy's name is.
Yeah, no fucking idea.
And the craziest part is Voss is such a staple. I bought a car in this game and I have a Voss bobblehead in the car.
Really? That's so cool.
So it's
people fucking love Voss. It's like a consensus that he's so good.
He was so good and he was so compelling because you're like, and I feel like that's what Far Cry does totally different from other people, or not other people, but other developers. Other developers are like Naughty Dog, specifically Naughty Dog, are like, here's our main guys, here's our main characters, love them. Mm-hmm. And Far Cry and Ubisoft, they're like, here's our main guy, you know, fuck him, we don't even know his name, people just call you Rook.
In Far Cry, like Far Cry 3, you were Jason, but really, did you give a fuck about Jason?
Yeah, no. In this game, I don't even know my guy's name. People just call me Rookie because I'm a rookie cop. So it's like, I don't even know my name.
Yeah, it's the Far Cry series. The characters that are memorable are the villains. They're not. Yeah,
and
your fucking protagonists.
Different. And it's different from a lot of other games where it's like, here's your main character. He's awesome or she's awesome. Love them, and if they die, you're gonna feel sad. This is like, man, I can't wait to kill this fucker because he's freaking awesome or she's really awesome.
Yeah, you're like, this guy's a piece of shit. He or she's a piece of shit.
I specifically went after her first because it was like, dude, she's going to be crazy. I can already tell. You know?
Yeah.
Like the other guys, I mean, from what I can tell so far, there's 3 boss guys and 1 boss girl. So I was like, I'm going after the girl first.
Makes sense.
Because it's like,
there's
she's going to be different. Yeah, well If you think about it, like, she's probably going to be more different than the other guys, and I want to hear that story first.
Yeah, because a lot of, like, male characters are kind of all the same.
Yeah, because they're just like, oh, I'm powerful, and you're going to be my slave or whatever. And this is the girl, like, trying to convince you that this is right, and this is the way.
Yeah, she's the smart one, and they're like, the brutes.
From what I can tell so far, I've seen like 2 cutscenes with the other guys, and that's about it. So,
Well, since I've already brought up microtransactions and you being a self-proclaimed whale, so we have spoken about this. You participate on microtransactions in a couple games. You bought some stuff in Paragon. You've bought some stuff in Warframe, which, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about Warframe's microtransactions because I have some choice words to say, even though it's a great game. But
no, they push you towards microtransactions pretty hard in that game.
It's freaking ridiculous. They're like, hey, want to spend 1 million hours? And nobody's freaking out about it. It's like, yeah, you can earn it in-game, but microtransactions make it far easier.
Well, because it's a free-to-play game, is what I'm assuming.
It's free-to-play. It totally makes sense that they would that microtransactions are in there because that's how they're going to make money off of it.
Well, they push them really hard, though.
Yeah, it's
like the biggest description I can say of why I'm a quote whale with microtransactions is DC Universe Online.
Yeah, you spent a dickload of money on that.
And the reason I spent a dickload of money on that is, one, I loved the game. And the reason I did it is because if people don't know what DC Universe Online is it's the DC Universe, and it's a MMO. So you get to play with everybody else, and they have, like, I don't know, 10, 12 powers or whatever. Powers being like fire and ice and stuff like that. And there you can spend $10 to switch your power. And so if I ever got bored of a power, I never had to make a new character and, you know, level that person up to the extremes that I did to my main character just so I could be a different power. Now what I ended up doing was I made 2 different characters that are really good and made it to where, okay, this character is only going to become tank powers or healer powers, and this person's only going to become troll powers or tank powers, you know?
Yeah. Gives you a little bit of diversity.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of diversity. So it's like, but if I ever got bored of a power, I could just be like, okay, $10. I'm going to play this game I'm going to play with that power for like 30 hours. I think $10 is worth it. So, and that's kind of where my biggest self-proclaimed whale is from.
Yeah. Where I was going with that was, so a big section of microtransactions, or where you really hear from them, is mobile games. So I think both of us play a little bit of mobile games, but you definitely play them. How do you feel about them? Do you like? Would you say you look down on people for playing mobile games, or
no? I love mobile games. The thing that I start to like not love about mobile games is the fact that like they get really grindy.
Oh yeah, both you and I recently, like, you got me into it, but I've been playing Idle Heroes and it's super grindy.
But it doesn't
you hit a wall
off,
and have to grind consistently.
It does not start off grindy. It starts off really fast paced, like, oh, do this, have fun, play this game, you know. But then it really, like you were saying, it hits a wall so hard where it's like, well, looks like I'll get on tomorrow. And it's the same wall that Clash of Clans has, and those are pretty much the only two mobile games I play, and I play them both pretty consistently. But it's like you hit a wall, and it's just like, and literally in Clash of Clans, it's like, okay, I have 3 things building right now, all for 5 days. Looks like I'm only getting on once a day to collect all my resources.
Yeah, I'm assuming just like Idle Heroes, Clash of Clans does, like, oh, you can finish it faster if you pay for it.
Yeah, it does, yes.
Yeah,
and
definitely
And one thing I have noticed about game, like, microtransactions is, unlike video, like, console games or PC games where there are microtransactions, the time comparison's not fucking worth it in the mobile games. It's just not worth it.
What do you mean?
Like in a console game, you have a skin that you want to buy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you buy that for $10 or whatever. On the mobile game, there's not really a lot of games that do like skins or whatever, but it's like, would you like to get more resources? And you say yes. And you look at it and it's like, okay, you're going to need, let's say Clash of Clans. You're going to need 2,000 gems for that. You're like, 2,000 gems? That's like $20. Just to do this one thing, when in Call of Duty or a Fortnite, I'm going to have this skin forever?
Yeah, I recently participated. I'm not a whale. I don't do microtransactions all that often, but I did buy a skin on Fortnite the other day just because I was sick of looking at my fucking character. I was like, God, you're ugly. So I just like bought the Recon skin.
I would buy a skin on Fortnite, but I don't know. I would rather watch Fortnite than play it, if I'm being totally honest.
I recently, a friend of ours and I have got into Fortnite. If you follow me on Instagram, I posted about our first chicken dinner. Like, I felt really cool about that. I was like, yay, I finally have placed first in Fortnite.
See, I haven't even played enough to place first. I've played 7 matches.
It's a really fun game. Since we're on the topic of Fortnite, have you know about Fortnite on mobile and everything, right?
Yeah.
So there has been several stories I've seen about teachers writing to Epic being like, hey, love your game, but it's disturbing my classes because my students are playing Fortnite mobile while we're in class. And they're basically them. I know they're pleading to these developers, and I'm like, how is this their issue? How is any of this their fault? These kids are choosing to play these games.
When I was in school, you weren't allowed to have your phone, and if a teacher saw it, they took it.
Yeah, I definitely have issues with that.
I don't have issues with that. Don't have your damn phone in class. It's not that hard.
Oh, no, I understand the thought process behind it. I'm just stubborn, and it doesn't matter. But I just thought that was so funny that it seems like these teachers are in certain circumstances, because others are not, obviously. There's 2 sides of this story. but some teachers are like essentially blaming Epic. They're like, hey, you are keeping my kids from learning. And it's like, are we though? Is it the game developer's fault?
Well, if I'm that teacher,
playing this game.
If I'm that teacher, I'm taking the kids' phones.
Yeah, exactly. Like it seems like an issue for the classroom and not necessarily an issue for the developer.
And on the subject of Fortnite still, I would like to play Fortnite, but I would much rather play it on my PC. And I know there's like crossplay, like I could add you guys and stuff. Mm-hmm. And but I'm pretty sure that makes it to where we're going against PC players too.
Yeah, you can opt into that. So when Forrest and I were playing the other day, he was like, oh yeah, we might be going against PC players and stuff. And I'm like, oh no, we're not. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, you can actually, there's a setting in Fortnite to where you can choose what platforms you like can do crossplay with. And at the moment I've just been playing with people on PS4, but yeah, everyone talks about the accuracy of using the mouse and keyboard and how that is drastically different than using the controller and why you shouldn't do that in these games. Like, if you have the option, play with mouse and keyboard because you're so much more accurate.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thing too, is I'd rather play with my mouse and keyboard. Well, really my mouse. I'd rather play with my mouse.
Yeah, the mouse is more accurate, and you can like hotkey building, so you can click F1 and you build a fucking staircase.
Well, that's kind of my thing. Is on my mouse I have numbers on the side. 1 through 12.
Have the quick bar on the side of your mouse.
Yeah, and so building, it's a lot easier than fucking hitting triangle or whatever, and R1 and building, and it's like, I don't know. It seems like such a burden on the controller to me.
Yeah. I would definitely say that I would enjoy to play it on PC a lot more. And it's one of the few things that I would legitimately, like, if I had the option, I would play it on PC. Well, I do have the option. I have a PC. But I could play it on my PC.
And I would like to play with you guys, but I don't want to have to put you guys in the same lobby as PC players.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I don't want to be the asshole that gets the thing where I can hook up my keyboard and mouse to my PS4. I don't want to be that asshole. Because that exists.
Yeah, I believe it. I definitely believe it. So, the last topic that I had specifically that I wanted to talk about is, are there any games you're playing now or you've been playing recently that would be like a more little-known game that you play that not many other people might play? So I brought up earlier that I bought Ni no Kuni and I want to buy Far Cry 5, but I've been playing a bunch of Portal Knights, and Portal Knights recently got re-released on the Switch, and it's on there as well, but there's not really any traffic about it, and it's essentially just like a goofier, more like whimsical version of like Minecraft. That's essentially what it is. And I think it's really fun. I love Portal Knights. Now, it's so awesome, but nobody talks about it.
When you first said that, there's two games that came to mind. One of them was DC Universe. Now, I know a lot of people played that game, but not a lot of people talked about it.
Yeah, still nobody talks about it, really.
So when I used to play DC a lot, and then I would listen to a podcast with Greg Miller, and he'd mention it, I'd get all antsy, because it's like, ooh, talking about DC, you know?
You're all antsy in your pantsy?
Yeah, you know, getting a little excited. And the same thing happened for me with Paragon, with Andrea Renee. When she would talk about it, I would get all like, ooh, someone's talking about it, you know? And so that's kind of like the first thing that came to mind when you asked, is there games that like you enjoy, but they don't get a lot of traffic?
Yeah, both of us know, and I would imagine anybody who has watched our stuff or listened to the podcast so far knows that I'm a huge fan of indie games, and they just don't get enough press from what I'm concerned. That's my big answer for it, is I play a shitload of indie games, and like almost none of them really get talked about. Like Hyper Light Drifter Heart Machine just announced that there's going to be a Switch version coming, and like nobody talked about it. Literally the only time I heard anything about it was one the original post I saw from Heart Machine, and I think Nintendo as well posted about it. And two, or this was after the Nintendo Direct with the Nindies. And two, I heard Andy Cortez just randomly shouted on a podcast that he wasn't even on. And I was like, that's kind of depressing because that game is so fucking good.
I've heard about him talk about it before, and I've heard you talk about Hyper Light Drifter before. And when he brought it up, I got antsy for you.
Yeah, no, I'm actually like, I will more than likely purchase the game on my Switch, even though I've already beat it. Like, I love Hyper Light Drifter, and I'm so excited for more people to get to play it.
Now, there's another game that came to my mind, and it did get a lot of press for a while. It was a lot of negative press, and now it doesn't get really any press because it's just kind of like over. But I'd say NCAA football. I've talked about it a lot. I love that game.
Yeah, you're a big fan of NCAA.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it doesn't get any press anymore because it's not coming out. And it used to get a lot of press because it was like, oh, it's not coming out anymore. So it's like, it was a double whammy. It's like, oh, people are talking about NCAA football. And then it's like, oh, we're not getting any more NCAA football.
I guess I should ask, I mean, you are this is a rare fucking talk about sports on this podcast, but you are one of the few people that I specifically know that really, really cares for this. Like, obviously people love this video game series, but since we're on the topic of sports, how do you feel about, like, the issue with these games being that they can't pay these college athletes for their likenesses, so then they can't use their likeness? How do you feel about, like, them not being able to pay college football
Athletes.
players and collegiate athletes? They can't pay them, but the colleges themselves make quite a bit of money off of them.
Well, there's a YouTube channel called Flemlo Raps, and he does a lot of, like, what happened to, like, specifically, like, what happened to this athlete, what happened to this athlete. And one time he did one on Ed O'Bannon, and he was pretty much the athlete that, like, started this, like, feud with the NCAA and with EA about, like, paying because they were using their likenesses and whatever. And on one of his videos, he was talking about EA came up with a really good, like, plan to put in place of this. And what he was essentially saying, and I'm kind of mixing this with something I think they should do, is they should, like, EA or whatever should give each college, let's say, like, $100,000 or whatever. I know there's a lot of college, but, you know, just stick with me. $100,000, and say you have, 75 players. Or I don't know how many are college roster. I think there's more than that, but, like, let's say 75 players. You can split that up any way you want, and we will give it to them after they graduate. You know?
I never thought about that.
I think that would be a really smart, and it's kind of almost like a trust fund. Like, we're putting this money under their name. They cannot get this money until they graduate. And I'm pretty sure that was essentially something that EA was trying to do. But again, the NCAA was saying that, oh, that doesn't fit under the rules and regulations or something. It's like, but they're not making this money while they're in college.
Yeah, they're no longer a collegiate athlete. Once they graduate, it's like, then they can have that money.
Yeah, and I thought it's like, you know, your parents set you up with a bank account or whatever that you can't access until you're 18, you know, something like that.
Like a trust fund?
Yeah, you can't access that till you're 18. And this would be, you can't access that till you have either graduated or are not in college anymore and not doing college athletics. And I think that was a really good plan. But again, the NCAA, in my opinion, is just super money hungry. They do not want to give these kids a fucking dime. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, which is pretty depressing because from what I understand, like, a large portion of their, like, argument against it is that these kids are going to go on to play in the NFL or whatever. Like, they're going, exposure. They're getting exposure now, and later on they will get paid copious amounts of money for being in the NFL. Yeah, if they even make it that far.
and maybe 1% make it that far, you know? And the thing that I find the most annoying is that a lot of these college kids are on full ride scholarships to the college, so they don't have to pay for college. And I hate it when the normal fan is like, oh, they want to get paid. They do get paid in an education. It's like, listen here, Betty. These kids aren't here to go to college. These kids are here to play football.
Also, I've heard like several stories. I mean, this is just me kind of talking out my ass, but I've heard several stories about like entire degree programs just created for college, like for athletes, collegiate athletes, just because it's like something easy to pass because they have a grade requirement to hit.
Yep. University of, I think it was North Carolina, UNC, was doing that. And they literally had like essentially fake classes that they would put these basketball players and these football players through that were still technically some form of psychology, but it was like color psychology or something like that. And it's like, what does that even mean? It's just a fake, essentially in a fake degree.
Yeah,
or not a degree, but a fake class. They're technically
going to class, but they're not. It's not actually.
It's not like
degree
a real
program
class.
Or a class.
Yeah, it's just like a. But the argument that they get paid on a full ride scholarship. Well, I'll tell you right now, the players that do, quote, deserve. I guess they all deserve to get money because they're all putting their lives out there. But a lot of these players are out there because there is a rule that they cannot go to the NFL. You know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can't go to the NFL until you're removed from high school for 3 years. So technically, they are getting exposure to these NFL teams. But they're also not there to do college. So people, a lot of them, most of them, I would say most of them are there because one, they're good at football, and two, they're trying to get a degree. But I'm talking about these elite athletes like Leonard Fournette. He played for the LSU Tigers a few years ago, just got drafted first round, like pick 9 or whatever. One of the better players to ever come out of high school, let alone college. And not many players are like him in the fact that when he was 18 years old graduating from high school, he was 6'2", 240, 230 pounds, could hit like an NFL player when he was 18. So he kind of just had to be in college for 3 years to get that eligibility, you know?
Yeah, I've also heard, you say that a lot of these people go to college essentially just to play football, but I've also heard that several, if there is a football player that also wants to get an applicable degree, so if they don't get into the NFL or whatever, they can actually go into a legitimate career field.
Yeah, and
that they're held to ridiculously high standards, and a lot of their football stuff impedes them from actually getting a degree.
Well, one, they're full-time athletes and full-time college
students.
Kids. Yeah. And two, usually if you're a full-time college student, you have a part-time job or maybe a full-time job if you're a badass. But how are you going to have a full-time job or even a part-time job, be a full-time athlete, and be a full-time student? It doesn't really add up.
Yeah, they can't get paid for being an athlete, even though these colleges are making ridiculous amounts of money.
They can't get paid off their likeness. And so, a few years ago, there was a kid, Johnny Manziel, that he was a football player, one of the most electric college football players to ever play. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, is not necessarily these good kids that may make it to the NFL for a season or two, and then they're not going to pan out, but they did go to college, they did get their degree, so they're going to be fine, you know? I'm talking about these elite players that are first-round draft pick, top 5 picks, that are going to be in the NFL for 10 years. They're not going to college to be a student. They're just not.
Yeah, now, they're there for is to play football?
They may get their degree while they're there, but that's not why they're there. They're there because it's just the next step to be in the NFL.
Makes sense.
And I think they should be able to, if I'm an elite college football player, I'm a sophomore, and I'm one of the best in the country, and I want to charge people some money to have me sign something, $50 for an autograph, I think they should be able to do that. But they cannot. You will get suspended for games for doing that.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, and it just seems like the NCAA is just such a greed-ridden.
It's like a money-hungry organization.
Yeah, it really is, and it's like you're making so much money off these kids, even off the college basketball kids. You know, you're just making so much money off these kids.
Yeah, you're like, why not share the wealth?
Why not? I'm not even talking giving them $50,000. I'm talking a couple grand. You know,
something to live on.
Just something. It doesn't have to be like they're paid NFL players. Just give them some money, or if they have a big persona, let them make money off their persona. Like there was a kid. His name is what is his name? Donald De La, something like that. He had a interesting last name, but he had a YouTube channel and he literally lost his football scholarship.
I was about to bring that up, yeah.
Because of his YouTube channel, because he was making money off advertisement. Well, he was making money off of his likeness with the advertisement. And I think it's just so stupid.
And also, from what I understand, he wasn't making that much.
Well,
like, he was a relatively small YouTuber.
Yeah, and I think what really blew him up was this whole drama that went down.
Yeah, quote-unquote scandal.
Yeah, and it was like, I mean, I guess technically he made his money off of being a football player by being kicked off. And his YouTube channel is destroying.
That's kind of interesting.
Well, his last name is De La Haye, maybe? Donald De La Haye. And so destroying, you know. But yeah, it's just really interesting. That's like, this kid can't make some money while he's being a full-time athlete. And I'm not saying this is his particular case, but a lot of these kids, not all of them, not most of them, a lot, are coming from, you know, the inner city. A lot of basketball players coming from Chicago, you know. Now, if they can make a couple grand off the side to help pay their parents because their parents are still living in Chicago, I think they should be able to. It makes no sense.
Like I said, I don't know much about sports. I just thought, since you brought up NCAA, I was like, hey, might as well talk about it.
Well, as you can tell, I'm into sports, and I think these kids should get paid, but I'm not running the NCAA.
Any other topics you wanted to bring up? You wanted to talk about today?
No, I think I got my rant of the week out.
Yeah. One rant every week makes you feel better. It's like a huge weight lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah, it's like an apple a day, man.
Keeps the scurvy away, right?
Keeps paleo away.
Yep, you got it. Well, as always, I thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being on the podcast and everything. And make sure you guys check out our YouTube channel, Fanboy Talks. This will post there on Mondays, every Monday. And it'll also post on our SoundCloud channel. Just look up Fanboy Talks on SoundCloud, or You Guys Maybe Inc. It should pop up. Or just make sure you subscribe to one or the other. They post roughly the same time. So yeah,
if you look up You Guys Made Me Inc., it'll give you like individual episodes, but if you go to Fanboy, or if you search Fanboy Talks, then it'll bring up like a playlist of all of them. So
and you can subscribe to it.
Yeah, it's much easier to just look it up fast. Fanboy Talks.
And once again, quick thanks to Raisin Trash. I know I commented. I am trying to make it a thing to where everyone who comments on one of our videos or podcasts or anything, I comment back and like talk to them. But Raisin Trash, if you guys have watched any of these episodes, this person has like basically been like a legitimate, I guess, quote unquote fan. I don't know if they're really a fan or anything, but consistently like watches and listens and leaves comments, and that's just awesome. I just want to say thanks. You're a cool person. You're a cool guy.
Thank you.
Or girl.
It may not seem like a lot, but it is. Just one comment.
Yeah, and specifically for Raisin Trash, you commented and said you wanted to, your life goal is to pay off your house from Tom Nook. One of my life goals that I actually didn't talk about in that episode is to own my own forest. And that sounds weird, but I want to buy a plot of land when I'm older, and I want to plant trees on it. And yeah, that's what I want to do.
I've heard you talk about that before. I fucking love
trees, dude. Trees are my fucking jam. Everyone thinks that's weird. Quaking aspen, favorite type of tree. That's it.
Interesting.
Podcast over. It's done.
Awesome.
Mic drop.
Well, thank everybody for listening, especially Raisin Trash, because you pretty much are number one listener right now. I don't really like calling people fans because there's not much to be fan about around here, but listener is a good thing to call. Are you really a fan?
Do you really even like this? You're just like, it's white noise.
I'll give these guys a view. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Vaughn, for being here with me, and we'll see you guys next time.
Have a great day.